Good afternoon, Andrew. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. How's it going?
It's going really well. I'm always happy to see your face. You and I have done a lot of this virtual Zooming recently. I think it's been over a week and a half since we've seen each other in the flesh. But I'm always really blessed to see you over this medium and over technology. I just wanted to see how you're doing on this Palm Sunday. And then I want to ask you some questions as we kind of go into our second episode of this Sermon Talkback series. So how are you guys doing? And then tell me a little bit about what the youth are doing and how people can get in touch with you at Central.
Yeah, so we're hanging in there. Some days are better than others. Just trying to figure out the best way to do life just together all the time. And so you can imagine there's a lot of joys and there's a lot of challenges that come with that, especially with a toddler running around trying to learn how to become a preschool teacher all at once. So that's good. But
Yeah,
uh,
learning to be a preschool teacher sounds challenging.
they don't get paid enough. That's what I learned.
That's exactly right.
But overall, things are okay. As okay and good as they can be in a situation
Yeah.
like this. But we with youth stuff has been pretty fun. Learning how to be a youth pastor during a time of pandemic, if you will. Doing a lot of Instagram. People
Becoming an influencer.
Yeah, that's what I tell people. My job is to become a very concentrated influencer. So a lot of updating Instagram, a lot of updating Facebook and all the stories, and learning how to do good campaigns like that and theme up the days and things of that nature. We do devotionals, and when those go up on Mondays on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, and then kind of the way that I've decided to do it was take what we do on a Sunday night and spread it out throughout the week. So we do a devotional on Monday, then we have a Lectio Divina on Tuesday, kind of a way of reading scripture.
Mm-hmm.
And right now we're going through the Psalms on that.
Cool.
Wednesdays for wisdom, and it's usually silly. The first one was Ron Swanson from Parks and Recreation. There's never been a sadness that can't be cured by breakfast food.
That's right.
So there was that.
Specifically
and then Thursdays,
bacon.
Yeah, all the bacon and eggs. And Thursdays, we usually kind of throw some pictures from past trips and times of hanging out, just to remind people and to bring joy in their lives. And Fridays are usually, and Saturdays are usually kind of Sabbath, like take some time for yourself. If it's nice, get outside. Don't get too close to people though. And then we do Sunday mornings, we do a Zoom meeting with Zoom Sunday school with parents. And right now we're doing one called Call to Community from the Work of the People. And then we do Sunday night youth. And those are small groups. It's a game and a small groups based on the devotional on Monday, which is based on what sermon happened on Sunday, the Sunday before. So yeah, so keeping up with that. And then I got some other little projects I'm working on. I really want to do some storytelling stuff, interviewing kids, what their life has been like, challenges, that kind of stuff, helping them tell their stories. So hopefully we'll get that going. That's the next project.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm really happy that you can share that, because I just want to say on my end, it's been really inspirational to watch you work during this time, Andrew. Like, you really mobilized quickly, kind of saw where the curve was going before others of us, and you've really been kind of out in front of us on this. And so that's been helpful. And you helped me navigate Zoom, because I'm not always the best at it. But you and I have somehow become the gurus. Mostly you. I'm in the lineage, and so I'm just very thankful, and I'm just blessed to be a part of a staff that you're on, because it's wonderful to watch you work in the way that you're intentional about caring for our youth and our parents, and really the whole congregation, not only in your teaching but in your example. So I'm happy that I'm getting to see it firsthand, but I wanted you to share a little bit, because sometimes that can go missed, and so I'm just really happy that you shared that, and I'm just very thankful that you're doing all that. So now I'm going to ask you some questions as we kind of do our second week here of this Sermon Talkback series. So Luke today kind of walked us through what pretty much in my remembrance the most unique Palm Sunday I've been a part of, just in that it was, it's interesting to be in a space where no one is, and have to kind of rely on new things, kind of pulling in on old traditions, or leaning on more simple modes of doing things. And I was reminded of that when Luke talked about how Jesus entered into Jerusalem, so that he came in through the eastern gate, and it was kind of a slapped together ticker tape parade as he's on a bandy-legged beast, as Rob says, whereas like Alexander the Great or Herod would enter in the western gate on these big war horses on a parade that was probably planned months in advance, and they spared no expense. And then Jesus came in on this eastern side. And I wanted to know, are you kind of experiencing something like that right now during the season of quarantine? Today was Palm Sunday, and usually we would get all dressed up, and maybe Iris would have had a dress, and we would have done the donkey walk, and we would have really relied on all of these big planned events that as a staff we get together and do. How was it to be in a space where you're kind of having to just draw on the simplicity of what you have around you, and lean on what's going on? Did you find any connection there, or I don't know, just kind of talk that out?
Yeah, it was, there's a little bit of, on our end as the Mockeries, a little bit of mourning, because we're both looking forward to being with Iris on Palm Sunday, waving the palms, enjoying that aspect, participating in it in that way. Doing the donkey walk is always fun, because usually I get a couple of our teenagers to hold the banners, and everybody has a good time. And so I guess in regards to just kind of holding on to what we got, it was really just, usually with Iris in worship, she goes downstairs and we're able to engage. And so our Palm Sunday, was just doing the best we can to try to find that space. And it really kind of ended up being one of us would watch worship for a little bit while the other corralled the toddler. And then we kind of switch off. And that's kind of grasping for what we got, which is space for us to engage online, while at the same time having to navigate life in quarantine together, and it really, I think where God meets us in that space is just in that very aspect of giving it our all, even though if you watched it, if you live streamed our family Palm Sunday, if you will, it looks rather chaotic and messy. But for me, that's kind of the message of Palm Sunday to some extent, is that it was chaotic and it was a mess. It was palm branches, it was jackets, it was a donkey, and and here we go. Here's this makeshift party, and and Jesus is at the center of it. And at the center of our chaos was wanting to connect with Christ the best that we could. Sometimes I felt like we probably didn't catch him quick enough and stared at the rear end of the donkey. But at least we caught a glimpse. That's kind of where we're at.
That's beautifully said, Andrew. I love that. Caught a glimpse. And what I heard you saying there, is that there was mourning, but also kind of the struggle between chaos and mourning and joy and all of the different things. And Luke talked about that, this juxtaposition that we're seeing right now, just in our time where we're still trying to celebrate our normal things like Holy Week and Easter and Palm Sunday, while being faced with the real realities of grief and the loss of stability, the loss of jobs, the loss of life, the loss of tradition, all of these things that we're kind of seeing juxtaposed. And you said something right when we began talking, that there's a lot of joys and challenges, just with work and with life right now, as well as everything going on. And so this has always been the struggle of the church, right? How do we juxtapose the celebration of Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday against Maundy, Thursday, and Good Friday and Holy Saturday? How do we juxtapose the grief and the celebration the relief of getting out of the season of Lent. This season, we've been kind of tilling the ground until Easter, but not missing the light and the dark, the celebration and the grief, the loss of what's going on. How are you seeing that juxtaposition in your own life during this time? And what can that tell the church today as we kind of deal with this real life grief and celebration? And how could that help us in the future?
Yeah, so I think of a few things when it comes to the juxtaposition. There is a lot. I mean, I'm a very social person, and you ask anybody. That's why I typically don't sit in my office. I sit in the middle of the common space because I can see people come in and out, and I could say hello, and I could be present with them. AJ will tell you that it takes 20 minutes for me to leave church because I'm always shaking hands and talking to people and just wanting to engage.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of mourning and loss and just not being physically connected to people. But the juxtaposition of that is we've connected to a lot of friends that we've left through these kind of Zoom conferences. And we're talking to our families a lot more. And it's for whatever reason, we all have this common experience of distancing ourselves from others socially and physically. But I don't think we've social distanced. In fact, if anything, we've become just distantly social. And it's the way I heard someone say it on Facebook, and so I'm stealing that. We've been more distantly social with folks, and because now we all have a common experience again. And so we do game nights online. We stay connected to people. And so there's grief in the fact that like physically I'm not able to see my friends and hike and go hang out at our favorite restaurants and breweries and all those places that really brought life to us. And even as much as hiking, not hiking as much because we don't want to be a part of that problem of overcrowding places. But joy in the new ways and reconnections that we've made over this. And then I also think leading up to Easter with our parent Sunday school class this morning, we had a video from Walter Brueggemann. And one of the things that he says, and I kept it here right here, and it was fun that you asked me this question. He said, Jesus already performed many resurrections of people who have been declared dead by the dominant system. And that spurred off conversations with our families, our parents, that Easter's the big resurrection, but we need not to forget that along the way, there's a lot of little resurrections that lead to that.
Wow. Yeah.
And so we asked, them about what little resurrections they've experienced in the midst of essentially what's a death. We've been talking a lot about disruption when it comes to COVID-19. Really, it's a death of what life looked like for everybody. We have died to our previous life, and there has been little resurrections on the way. And so one of them is the resurrection of the kitchen table, where you used to have families running around all over the place. Google Calendars can't keep up, and all of a sudden now they're sitting down and eating dinner together a lot more. There's a resurrection of neighborhoods as people are standing on their front lawns, they said, shouting out to each other, working in the yard. Even me, I had to, as my neighbor and I stood distantly, we had to talk about how to fix a busted frost pipe. And because I didn't know how to do that, but he's outside and I'm outside, so we talk to each other now.
Wow. Yeah.
So there's these little resurrections everywhere we look. And I'm grateful that this is happening in the spring because the world is resurrecting all around us.
Yeah.
And so even though we've kind of died to a previous life, we're seeing new life spring up in different ways. And that's been something I've held on to a lot too.
That's awesome. I think that's, again, really well said. The juxtaposition of life and death that is seen in the seasons, and that this is a season where it feels like a lot of death, but out of that is coming the resurrection of things that give new life. And so I think that's such a beautiful way of saying that. And Brueggemann is really good at capturing those little nuggets like that. The last thing I wanted Oh, well, my dog is going to join us for part of it. The last thing I wanted to ask you about was in our book that we're kind of using, We Make the Road by Walking, which Lisa and I commented was kind of appropriate for this time because all of us are learning what it means, like you said, to do life right now. And some of that is reclaiming things of old, like the kitchen table, or being outside in the lawn and relying on one another, as well as how do we navigate a digital space. And so that's kind of, we're making this road together. All of us have this shared experience now of being quarantined or physically distant. And so we're moving along as one. And he says, and Luke quoted this in the end of his sermon, it's on page 150. It has been quite a day, Palm Sunday, a Sunday we will never forget, the beginning of a week we will never forget. What a wild mix of emotions. What a collection of dramatic events. As we fall asleep tonight, we should ponder this. To be alive is to learn what makes for peace. It's not more weapons, more threats, more fear, but more faith, more freedom, more hope, more joy, more love. Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. And I just wanted to, I think McLaren speaks so well to, you know, the wild mix of emotions that is Palm Sunday and is Holy Week, no matter what. But that during this time specifically, this will be a Holy Week we never forget. It'll be a Palm Sunday we never forget, a Good Friday, a Maundy, Thursday, an Easter Sunday we never forget, just because of the uniqueness of our time. But the end where he talks about we need to focus more on hope and joy and more life rather than more fear and more anxiety. Just comment on that quote from McLaren and what it spoke to you specifically during this time of Holy Week as we kind of make the road by walking in a new reality.
I think when I think about that, you know, what Holy Week is going to mean to me more, especially in regards to what McLaren was saying, is that this week we get to practice finding those things such as grace, hope, peace, and love, and all of those things because we're so slow. And I think about Brother Lawrence's practicing the presence of God and how my Holy Week will be focused on experiencing God in the mundane everydayness of just being at home, pressure washing my deck, cleaning dishes, potty training my child, you know, trying to not fight with my wife and try not to upset her, doing the dishes, you know, all of those things. I feel like Holy Week, this week set aside is a week that we get to set aside for ourselves to learn what it's like to experience the holy in the everydayness of life and practicing it in that way. Because usually even during Holy Weeks past, we're still busy. We're still aiming for the big things. And now our focus is to slow down, to be still, to do what is only necessary. And that is what will bring life to our world. And that's what we're called to do, is to bring life. And we get to bring that life through the everyday mundaneness. And it's in that we experience the holiness of God. And we get to practice peace and hope by being slow, home, and finding God in the everyday and the mundane. That's what I think of.
Man, that's awesome. Andrew, I'm really happy that we got to talk like this today. And I really think that you had some really, really interesting perspectives. And the one that is really sticking with me is, you know, in the chaos of wrangling a toddler who probably acts like a teenager sometimes, just knowing Iris, wrangling a child and kind of trying to keep a household together and chaos and figure out a new way of life, that there are still little glimpses of Jesus, and that sometimes we're only catching the backside of the donkey, or we're only seeing the beginnings of the shoots pop up during spring, but that these glimpses are little moments of rebirth for us. And so I'm really thankful that you found time. I know that you have youth this evening, but found time to talk and shared with me and with the congregation, just some really great insights on Luke's sermon. Is there anything else you wanna say? Otherwise, I'm good.
I'm good, man. This was fun.
It is. Well, peace and blessings, brother. I'll probably talk to you tomorrow.
All right. See ya.
All right.